Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Horowitz, the Inspector General, several years back, stated that they couldn't find any documentary or testimonial evidence to show bias against Trump or a political motivation against Trump. This sounds a bit boring. It's like a bit mundane, boring to listen to. Well, I don't want to hear 10 minutes about documentary or testimonial evidence. I just want to see indictments from the Durham probe. Yeah. Well, the indictments within the Durham probe, 3 of them already, involve documentary and testimonial evidence of overt bias. Kleinsmith actually fabricated evidence. He fabricated evidence so that a FISA judge would continue investigating somebody associated with Trump. Okay? Igor Danchenko, the indicted subsource of the Steele dossier, was part of, or was at one point, a source for a document. So there's documentary testimonial evidence. His testimony related to a document was completely, the whole thing was fabricated. The Steele dossier was a bunch of garbage. It was just fabricated nonsense. People truly believe that Trump was installed by another country because they don't know the facts. And these are the same morally superior, really wonderful liberal Democrats. Oh, they look in the mirror, they're so proud of themselves. They actually believe more falsehoods, more contrived, fabricated narratives than anyone else. And then they're petrified and horrified if somebody doesn't agree with them or disagrees with them or listens to information that could lead them astray. But documentary and testimonial evidence, that is the actual phrase that relates directly also to Michael Sussman and James Baker and the tech executives that he worked with and the tech people that he worked with to obtain surveillance information from non-public cybersecurity data, internet data, information, computer information. So they did this literally to appease VIPs, which is what's in the indictment, the factual background that they unsuccessfully tried to remove from court record. The factual background in the Sussman case, in the Sussman indictment, and in the Danchenko indictment, and then in the Kevin Kleinsmith indictment, the FBI official, the factual background shows a good amount, actually tremendous amount of documentary and testimonial evidence. Okay? But see, what Horowitz did, which tried to undermine the Durham probe even before it began, and he didn't perhaps do so on purpose, but this man's a government bureaucrat like all these bureaucrats. He didn't find, and hit subscribe to this channel right now. Tell your friends, to the people who support this channel and my work via Patreon. Thank you so much. Your work, your support is greatly appreciated. If you want this channel to grow, we're almost at 200,000 subscribers. We're not far away from 195,000. It's because of you. Hit subscribe, tell your friends. Hit subscribe to the Stock Market Crash channel below in the pinned comment. Read my article in October of 2021 in the Federalist predicting a devastating stock market crash that we're seeing the beginning of this year. If you look, ladies and gentlemen, at documentary or testimonial evidence, that phrase is a phrase that was used during the Inspector General report numerous times and within testimony, congressional testimony by Michael Horowitz. I'll be talking about documentary and testimonial evidence a lot throughout these segments on the Durham probe. It's very important that you understand why they focus on documentary and testimonial evidence to try to absolve government officials like Comey, Strzok, McCabe, Clapper, Brennan. Okay, so, for example, a text message from Peter Strzok saying we'll stop Trump is not documentary evidence. It's simply a text message from a lead investigator into Trump saying he's going to stop Trump. The media doesn't view that as bias or a politically motivated attempt at undermining an incoming candidate with a bogus narrative that he was installed by another country, which, by the way, you could do to Democrats also. Ask yourself why they didn't inquire about the origins of you-know-what. And then you can go from there and start investigations. I mean, you can do that with when they say, oh, you're rooting for our adversaries. That's why you have that opinion. It's the most sophomoric, sad, pathetic statement about political discourse in this country. It's descended into like middle school type of nonsense. Oh yeah, well you're trying to help our adversaries. You're probably on that side anyway because you voted for Trump. The Durham probe is unraveling the layers of one of the greatest propaganda spins in the history of mankind. They convince, you have tens of millions of morally superior, really wonderful liberal Democrats who really want to save the planet because there's a scientific consensus on climate change. And it's true. I agree with it's a serious issue. But they pride themselves on being logical and rational, and they're still clinging to that hope, that belief, that absurd myth that they purchased, literally from the Steele dossier, Clinton campaign, DNC purchasing the Steele dossier, a third-party tech firm saying that the DNC was hacked to inform the world that Bernie Sanders was cheated. All of this gets back to Bernie Sanders. Watch my segment prior to this one. But you have tens of millions of people who truly believe a lie. That lie is that Trump was installed by the Kremlin because Facebook ads apparently were there were negative Facebook ads that nobody could describe against both Trump and Clinton, but apparently they were more against Clinton. So therefore, that means that Vladimir didn't want Trump, but he won anyway. He won anyway in 2016. That's because he was installed by another country. It wasn't. They can't possibly look in the mirror. They do that with. They accuse Tulsi Gabbard, Tucker Carlson, Donald Trump, anyone they disagree with. Hunter's emails. Oh, that was disinformation from another country. It's their security blankie. Anything that they're accused of, any corruption that they have, any gas prices. Well, you know what's happening in Europe. Yeah, it's happening under your watch. Why do you think it's happening? Because President's exhumed body is completely incompetent in every way, shape, and form. But at least he wasn't installed by another country. You have to understand the documentary and the testimonial evidence that Michael Horowitz was looking for when he was searching for bias against Trump was a signed letter of admission. He wanted some kind of letter stating, I, James Comey, Clapper, McCabe, Brennan, all of them, we conspired and broke 18 U.S. Code 371, which is the legal statute I talk about that McCabe and Comey should be charged under, and Clapper and Brennan, all of them, to undermine and set up an incoming candidate for political purposes because about 60 million plus people couldn't fathom that they actually lost to the Orange Menace Trump. Signed intel officials, corrupt intel officials, media, journalists, and here's your proof, Michael Horowitz. Here's your proof, Inspector General. We actually admitted. And then he would say, if he got that, he would say, okay, we have the testimony on documentary evidence. There you go. Okay, short of that, the Steele dossier, Strzok and Page text messages that were enough to kick them out of the Mueller probe, all of that wasn't enough for Horowitz. But it's not about Michael Horowitz or the Inspector General report. That's like a footnote on that is a precursor to all of this that people should just understand took place initially to absolve the government of any guilt or liability. The government was in on it. You had loyalists within the government in on it. Now, there are people who really want the Durham probe to succeed who say, well, this isn't as bad as Watergate because we still haven't proven that government officials were part of it. Once there are more indictments where you have James Baker versus Michael Sussman, you have government, FBI versus attorney at Clinton-linked law firm, you're going to get, hey, you knew what we were doing. Oh, no, I didn't. Oh, yes, you did. The government was in on it. Well, actually, we weren't. And then Durham just has to watch and sit and see and look at how both sides defend themselves and then indict more people for perjury. Michael Sussman and James Baker, the FBI legal counsel, what happens there will affect the Danchenko indictment, could affect Kleinsmith, yet with even more indictments, will bring a whole new arena to all of this, because it will show, Michael Sussman has to defend himself by showing the court and the judge that the government knew what it was doing when he obtained non-public data on Trump and utilized that data, which was nonsense, to begin investigations. They did that with the Steele dossier, with Alpha Bank, with trying to set up and frame Carter Page and George Papadopoulos and Michael Flynn. This was 18 U.S. Code 371. They conspired to defraud the American public. There's no greater deceit than convincing millions upon millions of people that your incoming president was installed by another country, because Facebook ads that nobody can describe swayed a number of people that nobody could count or give you the actual number. Anyway, give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe right now. I'll be back in about an hour. Be here in about an hour.